A homeless veteran fixed an old diner for an elderly man. Then God sent a miracle. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. Nolan Creed had nothing left. The cold wind bit through his old olive poncho as he walked the deserted streets of Northwind Bay. Once a combat engineer in the army, now he was a man without a home, wandering the streets with only his loyal German shepherd, Ash, by his side. His boots, heavy with mud from the relentless rain, dragged as he shuffled down the main street, his eyes scanning for any sign of shelter. As the wind howled, the faint glow of a small diner caught his attention. Sugar Pine Bakery, the sign said, its wooden frame barely visible through the sheets of rain that poured down. Nolan had no money, no job, but something in him pushed him forward, a deep-seated instinct for survival. Ash's ears perked up as the dog sniffed the air, sensing something unknown, something familiar. Nolan slowed his steps. They had been wandering for days, trying to make sense of a life that had become a blur of struggle and survival. He could feel the weight of his past pressing down on him, the memories of war, of friends lost, of battles fought and won, but never truly forgotten. The bakery was small, weathered by time, but still standing strong against the storm. As he approached, the door swung open, and the warm smell of fresh bread and cinnamon greeted him. Inside, the sound of a soft bell ringing filled the air, though no one had entered. Nolan froze, his heart skipping a beat. Ash growled softly, his body tense. Nolan stepped forward, his hand on the doorframe, peering inside. An elderly woman stood at the counter, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun, her face marked by years of experience and hardship. She looked up, her eyes sharp despite the age. "You look like you need a warm meal, soldier," she said, her voice gentle but firm. Nolan hesitated, his pride getting the better of him. But the warmth of the bakery, the kindness in her voice, pulled him in. "I'll take whatever you have," he said quietly, his throat tight. She smiled, a soft, knowing smile. "Come in, sit down. You've been through enough." As Nolan stepped inside, he felt the weight of the world lighten, just a little. For the first time in what felt like forever, he could feel the presence of something good, something right. And as he sat down, Ash curled up beside him, watching the woman closely, his instincts still sharp. The storm raged outside, but inside the bakery, something felt different. Something was changing. Little did Nolan know, his journey was about to take a turn, and that old diner, with its worn floors and cracked windows, would soon reveal secrets that would change everything. I was a stranger in a strange town, but the warmth of the Sugar Pine Bakery was something I hadn't felt in years. Sitting there in the corner of the bakery, with a steaming cup of coffee and a fresh pastry in front of me, I began to feel like maybe, just maybe, I had found something real. The old woman, Maeve, sat across from me, quietly watching, as if she knew something I didn't. Her eyes, though sharp, held a depth of understanding, like she had seen life's darkest moments but still believed in kindness. "So, tell me about yourself," she said, breaking the silence. I didn't want to talk. I never did. But something in her gaze made me feel safe, like I could be open, if only for a moment. I looked at Ash, who was lying by the door, his eyes never leaving Maeve. "Nolan Creed," I said, my voice rough. "I've been around a lot, seen a lot. Nothing good ever came my way. Just me and my dog." Maeve nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving mine. "I know what it's like to lose everything, to feel like you're just drifting through life. But there's always something, Nolan. You just have to keep looking for it." I wasn't sure what she meant by that, but I didn't push it. The storm outside raged on, but in here, it felt like time had slowed down. The warmth of the bakery wrapped around me like a blanket, and I could feel the exhaustion that had been building up over the years slowly ebbing away. I didn't know it then, but this bakery, this place, would be where everything would change. Over the next few days, I found myself coming back to the bakery again and again. Maeve never pushed me to talk, but she was always there, offering food, a cup of coffee, and a listening ear. She seemed to know when I needed to be alone and when I needed someone to just sit with me. Ash, too, seemed to grow fond of her. He would lay quietly by the counter, watching her every move, as if sensing something that I couldn't. One evening, as the storm finally began to die down, Maeve asked me to stay for dinner. "I can't keep offering you food for free," she said with a smile. "But if you're willing to work, I can always use a hand around here." I hesitated, but something in her eyes made me say yes. I wasn't used to help, and I wasn't used to accepting it. But there was something about this place, about Maeve, that made me feel like it was okay. I started helping her clean the bakery, repairing broken shelves, fixing the roof where the wind had torn a hole. The work was honest, the kind of work I used to do before everything fell apart. Slowly, I found a rhythm, and with each task completed, I felt a sense of pride that I hadn't felt in years. One evening, as I was fixing the old oven in the back, Ash suddenly started barking, his body rigid, his eyes locked on the floor. I looked at him, confused, and then I heard it too, a soft, rhythmic sound coming from beneath the floorboards. It was faint, almost like a pulse. Ash's growl grew louder. "What is it, boy?" I muttered. I moved toward the sound, kneeling down beside the old wooden floor. My heart raced as I pressed my ear to the boards. The sound was unmistakable. It was a faint, mechanical thrum. "What the hell?" I whispered to myself. Maeve had always talked about the bell above the door ringing on its own when kindness crossed the threshold. But this was something different. This felt like something waiting to be discovered. I hesitated for a moment, my fingers tracing the edges of the floorboards. I had no idea what I was about to find, but something told me it was important. I grabbed a crowbar and pried up one of the floorboards. Beneath it was a small metal box, rusted with age but intact. The box was old, probably from decades ago, and there was something inside. I couldn't believe it. I had found something hidden beneath the floorboards of this old bakery, something that had been waiting for years to be uncovered. I opened the box slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. Inside was a bundle of old papers, yellowed with age. The top sheet read, "The Secret of Sugar Pine Bakery." I unfolded the papers carefully, reading the first line. It spoke of a treasure hidden within the bakery, something valuable, something that could change everything. My hands shook as I read on. The more I read, the more I realized that the bakery wasn't just a place of warmth and food. It was the key to something much bigger, something life-changing. I looked up at Maeve, who had quietly entered the room behind me. She was watching me closely, her expression unreadable. I held up the papers, my voice barely a whisper. "What is this?" She smiled softly. "You found it, haven't you?" She sat down beside me, her voice calm, but filled with emotion. "This bakery has always been more than just a place for bread and pastries, Nolan. It's been a place of healing, of hope. And now, it's your turn to carry that hope forward." I sat in silence, the papers spread out before me. The truth of the bakery's secret was clear now, yet the weight of what it meant began to sink in. Maeve watched me closely, her eyes steady and filled with an understanding I couldn't yet fully grasp. "The treasure," I muttered under my breath. "What's it really mean?" She smiled, a slow, almost nostalgic smile, as if the weight of this moment had been a long time coming. "It means you have a purpose here, Nolan," she said, her voice soft yet powerful. "More than you've realized. It's time for you to make it your own." I looked down at the box, the papers revealing not just the hidden wealth of the bakery, but the heart of what it had always been. It was never just about the food, the pastries, or the warmth of the oven. It was about giving people something they could hold on to when life was falling apart. That was the gift. That was the miracle. But it wasn't just about keeping the bakery alive. It was about carrying it forward, creating new life from what had been handed down. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of something I hadn't in so long. Hope. The days passed slowly, the storm outside finally lifting, but the weight of what had been revealed to me didn't lift so easily. I spent my time helping Maeve, fixing the small details around the bakery, preparing for the future that had unexpectedly unfolded before me. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more to discover. One night, as I sat in the quiet bakery after closing, Ash by my side, I noticed something unusual. The bell above the door, which had always chimed when someone entered, rang out, a single, clear note. I froze, my heart racing. The air was still, the street outside empty. Ash lifted his head, his ears pricked up, his eyes sharp. Slowly, I stood up, the hairs on the back of my neck standing at attention. The sound was unmistakable. The bell wasn't just ringing. It was calling. I walked to the door, slowly, cautiously. I opened it and stepped outside, Ash at my heels. The night was quiet, the air crisp with the promise of change. And then I saw it, a figure standing in the distance, silhouetted by the dim streetlights. A man, tall and broad, walking toward me with purpose. As he came closer, I recognized him. It was a stranger, but his presence felt familiar, like I'd been waiting for him all along. "I've been looking for you," he said, his voice deep and steady, carrying a hint of something more. He wasn't just here by accident. "You're Nolan Creed, right?" I nodded, unsure of where this conversation was headed. "I've heard of you. Heard about the work you're doing here," he continued. "I'm Lucas Thompson. I'm with the town's development committee." I raised an eyebrow, confused. "What does that have to do with me?" "Everything," Lucas said, stepping closer. "We've been following the progress of the bakery, and we think it has potential. Big potential. We want to help you, Nolan. The town needs something like this." I didn't trust him. Not yet. Development committee? It sounded like the beginning of something I wasn't sure I wanted to be a part of. "Help me with what?" I asked, my tone guarded. "We have resources," Lucas explained. "Money, workers, connections. What you're doing here isn't just keeping a bakery alive. It's bringing hope back to the community. People need places like this to gather, to feel like they matter." He paused, looking over at the bakery, as if seeing something I didn't. "We want to turn it into something bigger. A space for the whole town. Maybe even a new beginning for all of us." The words hit me harder than I expected. I'd been so focused on surviving, on just getting by, that I hadn't seen what was happening here. What Maeve had built, what I was now a part of. "We'll be here to support you every step of the way," Lucas said. "But it's your vision, your decision." I stood there for a long moment, my mind racing. This wasn't just about fixing a broken bakery anymore. It was about fixing a broken town. It was about healing, about giving people a place to rebuild. "I don't know if I'm ready for all of this," I admitted, my voice low. "You don't have to be ready," Lucas said with a smile. "You just have to believe in what you're doing. And we'll help you make it happen." And just like that, I realized what Maeve had meant. The bakery wasn't just a place for food. It was a place for new beginnings. A place to heal. I turned back to Ash, who was sitting patiently at the door, his gaze steady. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, it felt like it was within my reach. I didn't have all the answers, but I knew one thing for sure. This was where I belonged. I stood outside the bakery, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. The offer from Lucas was still fresh in my mind, his words echoing in my ears. "Your vision, your decision." It sounded so simple, but nothing about this felt simple. The bakery, the community, the hopes and dreams of a town that had forgotten what it meant to feel alive. Now it was all resting on my shoulders. I looked down at Ash, who sat quietly beside me, his eyes as steady as ever. If anyone could help me figure this out, it was him. But there was more to it than just making the right decision. There was something else, something about what Maeve had said before, about carrying the bakery forward. It wasn't just about preserving the past. It was about building something new, something that could outlast both of us. The more I thought about it, the more it became clear. I wasn't just inheriting a bakery. I was inheriting a mission. The town needed something to believe in again, and maybe this was it. As the days passed, I began to focus on the work ahead. Maeve was still there, guiding me, teaching me the intricacies of running the bakery, but she was also slowly pulling back. She was starting to prepare for the next phase of her life, a life she knew would be different, but one she welcomed. I spent my time fixing up the building, bringing in new equipment, and slowly turning the bakery into a place that could serve the whole community. But there were still so many questions. What would the future look like? How could I turn this place into something that would change people's lives? And how would I know when the right moment had arrived to take the leap? It wasn't until one evening, as the sky turned to a deep shade of violet, that I got the answer. I had just finished cleaning up the bakery when I saw a group of people standing outside. They were all strangers to me, but there was something in their eyes. They were looking at the bakery as if they were seeing it for the first time. I walked out to greet them, Ash by my side, and one of them, a woman with dark hair and kind eyes, stepped forward. "We heard you're the new owner," she said, her voice warm. "We've been hearing about what you're doing here. My name's Clara, and this is my husband, Steve." We run the farm down the road. We were wondering if you'd be open to having a community gathering here. I was taken aback. A gathering? What do you mean? I asked. Clara smiled. We've got a lot of people in town who are looking for something more. A place to come together, to share stories, to heal. And we think this bakery could be that place. You're not just serving food here, Nolan. You're giving us hope. It hit me hard, harder than I expected. All this time, I had been thinking of the bakery as just a business, just a place to make ends meet. But Clara was right. It was more than that. The bakery was already a place of healing. It had been for Maeve, and now it could be for all of us. We started planning that night. Clara, Steve, and I met over coffee, discussing what the gathering would look like, how we could bring the whole town together. It wasn't just about serving food. It was about giving people a reason to come, a reason to feel like they belonged. Over the next few weeks, word spread, and the bakery began to attract more and more people. I was amazed at how quickly the town responded. The first gathering was small, but it felt like the start of something big. People came together, shared stories, and for the first time in years, there was laughter. The energy in the bakery was palpable, like a spark that had been waiting to ignite. I knew then that we were on the right track. The bakery had become more than just a place to get a meal. It was a place of connection, a place of healing. And as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, the bakery became the heart of the town. More gatherings followed, each one growing in size and significance. The community began to rebuild, not just around the bakery, but through it. As I looked around, watching people come together, I realized that this was exactly what I had been searching for. Not just a place to call home, but a purpose. And it wasn't just mine. It was all of ours. One evening, as I closed up for the night, Maeve came into the bakery. She had a soft smile on her face, one that said everything. You've done it, Nolan, she said, her voice filled with pride. You've turned this place into something more than I ever could have imagined. I looked around at the busy kitchen, the bustling tables, the faces filled with hope. We did it, I said, my voice thick with emotion. It's not just me. It's all of us. Maeve nodded. And that's the miracle, Nolan. When people come together, when they share what they have to offer, that's where the real magic happens. And in that moment, I realized that everything had come full circle. This wasn't just about fixing a broken bakery. It was about fixing a broken community, and in the process, fixing myself. The town had healed, and so had I. I walked into the bakery that morning, the soft light of dawn creeping through the windows, casting long shadows on the worn wooden floors. The place was buzzing with activity. Clara and Steve were already there, setting up tables for the next gathering. People were starting to trickle in, the hum of conversation growing louder with every passing minute. There was something about this place now, something electric, something alive. It was no longer just a bakery. It was a heartbeat, pulsing with the energy of the town. I stood there for a moment, taking it all in. I could hardly believe how far we had come. Only a few months ago, I had been lost, wandering the streets, unsure of where I belonged. Now, here I was, standing in the heart of a community that had taken me in, given me purpose, and shown me what it meant to heal. As I walked to the back of the bakery, I found Maeve sitting at the small table by the window, sipping her coffee. She had become more than just a mentor to me. She was family. I sat down across from her, Ash lying at my feet, his eyes ever watchful. It's amazing, isn't it? I said, looking around at the bustling bakery. Maeve smiled, her eyes soft with pride. I knew it would be. You've always had it in you, Nolan. You just needed to see it for yourself. I felt a swell of gratitude in my chest, but it was also mixed with something else. A quiet sense of unease. But what happens next? I asked. This place, it's growing so fast. I don't want to lose control of it. Maeve leaned back in her chair, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. That's the thing about miracles, she said softly. They're never about control. They're about trust. I looked at her, confused. Trust. Yes, she replied. Trust. That you're doing the right thing. Trust that the people around you will help carry the weight. Trust that you're not alone. It was a lot to take in. I had been so focused on the work, on keeping everything running smoothly, that I hadn't stopped to think about what it really meant. This wasn't just about fixing a bakery or building a business. It was about building something that would last, something that would keep giving long after we were gone. And for the first time, I realized that I had to let go of some of that control. I had to trust the people around me, trust that they believed in the same vision, that they were willing to put in the work. That night, as the gathering began, I could feel the weight of Maeve's words settling in my chest. The bakery was full of people, old friends, new faces, families, and strangers alike. Everyone had come together, drawn by the same thing. It wasn't just the food, though that was part of it. It was the feeling of belonging, the sense that, no matter what had happened in their lives, they had a place here. As I looked around the room, my heart swelled with pride. I had built something good. But even more than that, I realized that the miracle wasn't just in the bakery itself. It was in the people who had come together to make it happen. Every day they showed up. Every day they believed in what we were doing here. And with each passing day, the town was coming back to life. It was a slow process, but it was real. It was happening. And then, as I stood there, watching people laugh and share stories, I heard a familiar sound, the soft chime of the bell above the door. I turned to see a familiar face standing in the doorway. Lucas. I hadn't seen him in a few weeks, but here he was, standing in the doorway with a smile on his face. I thought I'd stop by, he said, his voice warm. I've been talking to some people in the town. They're ready to invest. They're ready to help you take this to the next level. My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? I mean, Lucas said, stepping forward, it's time to expand. This bakery, this place, it's the heart of this town now. And the town needs more. We want to help make it happen. But we need your blessing, Nolan. The room seemed to go silent for a moment. I wasn't sure what to say. Part of me was hesitant. Part of me was afraid that if we grew too fast, we'd lose what made the bakery special. But then I thought about everything we had built, everything that had happened since I first walked through those doors. The people, the community, the sense of hope that had taken root. This was bigger than me now. This was bigger than the bakery. It was about the future of the town, about giving people a place to belong. You have my blessing, I said, my voice steady. Let's do it. And just like that, I knew that this was the beginning of something even bigger. The miracle wasn't just about fixing the bakery or helping the town. It was about believing in something greater, something that would continue to grow and give long after we were gone. I walked into the bakery, the warm smell of freshly baked bread and pastries filling the air. It was a familiar scent, one that had become a symbol of the change I had found in my life. The place had transformed in ways I never imagined, and now it felt more like home than any place I had ever been. But even with all the growth, there was still a lingering feeling in the back of my mind, something that wasn't quite settled. As I stepped into the kitchen, Maeve looked up from the dough she was kneading, a soft smile playing on her lips. You're here early, she said, wiping her hands on her apron. Everything okay? I nodded, though the weight of the decisions we had made in the last few weeks was still on my shoulders. Yeah, just thinking, I replied, about everything that's happened, and where we go from here. Maeve chuckled, her eyes warm with the wisdom of someone who had lived through far more than I had. You don't have to have all the answers, Nolan. You just have to keep doing what you've been doing, one day at a time. Her words were a reminder of the simplicity that had been the foundation of this whole journey. Trusting the process, trusting the people around me, and letting things unfold, as they were meant to. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something big was on the horizon. As the weeks went by, the bakery continued to grow. The town was buzzing with excitement about the new community space we were creating. Lucas had helped bring in investors, and there were plans to expand, to open more locations. It felt like everything was happening at once, and while I was grateful for the opportunity, I couldn't help but wonder if it was all happening too quickly. One evening, after the last customer had left and the bakery had quieted down, I sat at the counter, staring out the window at the street. Ash lay at my feet, his head resting on his paws. Maeve came over and sat beside me, her hands folded in her lap. What's on your mind? She asked, her voice soft. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I just feel like I'm losing sight of what really matters. We've grown so fast, and I'm worried about losing the heart of what this place is about. It's not just about the money or the business. It's about the people, the community. I don't want to lose that. Maeve smiled and placed a hand on my shoulder. You're not going to lose it, Nolan. You've built something real here, something that has a soul. That's what matters. People can feel that. And as long as you keep that in mind, everything else will follow. I nodded, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. She was right. The community wasn't built on the bakery itself, but on the connections we had created, the relationships we had nurtured. That was the real miracle, the heart of what we were doing. The next few months were a whirlwind. The bakery expanded, and we opened our second location on the other side of town. The response was overwhelming. People were coming from all over, not just for the food, but for the sense of belonging that we had created. I watched as people who had once been strangers to each other began to form bonds, sharing stories, laughing together, and supporting one another. It was everything I had hoped for and more. But despite all the success, I still found myself questioning the future. What was next? How far could we take this? And would we still be able to hold on to the soul of what we had started? One afternoon, as I was overseeing the preparations for a new event we were hosting, Lucas came by with some new ideas. "I've been talking to some people," he said, sitting down at the table. "There's a lot of interest in what you're doing here, Nolan. People want to see more of this, more of what we're building. We're looking at opening more locations across the state. What do you think?" I listened, the excitement in his voice palpable. But for the first time, I hesitated. I had never imagined the bakery expanding this far, this quickly. The idea of reaching even more people was exciting, but I couldn't help but wonder if it would change what we had here. "I'm not sure," I said, looking down at my hands. "I don't want to lose what makes this place special." Lucas smiled, his eyes understanding. "You're not going to lose it, Nolan. You've built something incredible, and you're the one who will make sure it stays true to what it is. You've got the heart of this place. You just have to trust yourself." His words lingered in my mind long after he left. It wasn't about the size of the bakery or the number of locations. It was about the people, the ones who believed in what we were doing, who showed up day after day, who had become part of our family. As the days went on, I realized that I had been so focused on the fear of losing something that I hadn't fully embraced the opportunities before me. This was the next chapter, and it was up to me to write it. With that realization, I felt a sense of clarity. The decision was mine to make, and I knew what I had to do. We would grow, yes, but we would grow with purpose, with care, and most importantly, with the heart of the community always at the center. The bakery had become more than just a business. It had become a symbol of what could happen when people came together to support one another. And I wasn't going to let that go. We were just getting started. I woke up early the next morning, the sunlight creeping through the bakery's front window, casting long shadows across the floor. It was quiet for the moment, but I knew it wouldn't stay that way for long. The bakery was a constant hum of life now, full of people coming and going, sharing stories, eating together, and finding solace in something simple. It was all I had ever wanted. I sat down at the counter, my hands wrapped around a hot cup of coffee, the warmth comforting in the cool morning air. Ash lay at my feet, his head resting on the floor, eyes alert as always. Maeve came over and sat beside me, a knowing look on her face. "You're thinking again, aren't you?" she asked. I nodded, taking a deep breath. "I don't know how we got here, Maeve. It's all happening so fast. People are coming, they're supporting us, and now we're planning to expand even more. But I can't help but wonder, what if we lose the magic of what we've built here?" Maeve smiled softly, her eyes filled with understanding. "You won't lose it, Nolan. Not if you remember why you started this in the first place. You're not building this for the money or the fame. You're building it for the people. You're giving them something real." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I had been so focused on the details, the expansion, the logistics, the new locations, that I had forgotten the heart of it all. This wasn't just about the bakery. It was about the community we had created, about giving people a place to belong, a place where they could feel heard and understood. "I just don't want to mess it up," I said quietly, the weight of the responsibility pressing down on me. Maeve chuckled, her laughter soft but genuine. "You won't. You're doing fine, Nolan. The fact that you care this much is all that matters. The rest will come." I took another sip of my coffee, letting her words sink in. Maybe it wasn't about having all the answers. Maybe it was about trusting the process, trusting the people who had come into my life, and letting things unfold as they were meant to. As the days went by, the bakery continued to thrive. We opened a third location, and with each new step, I found myself more at ease with the changes. We weren't rushing to grow too quickly. We were building steadily, carefully, and keeping the heart of the bakery intact. I spent more time connecting with the people who had become part of our extended family. There was Clara, Steve, and so many others who had helped make the bakery what it was. I realized that it wasn't just the food that kept people coming back. It was the sense of community, the feeling of being part of something bigger than themselves. One afternoon, as I was setting up for a new community event, I noticed a familiar face in the crowd. Lucas. He had been a big part of our expansion efforts, bringing in investors and helping us secure the resources we needed. He walked over to where I was standing, his usual smile on his face. "I've been talking to a few more people," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "They're all in. They see what you're doing here, Nolan. This is bigger than just a bakery. This is something that can change the whole town." I nodded, though part of me still hesitated. "I know, but it's a lot, Lucas. It's a lot of responsibility. I don't want to lose what makes this place special." Lucas placed a hand on my shoulder, his eyes steady and reassuring. "You won't, Nolan. The heart of this place is in you. You're the one who keeps it real, who keeps it grounded. Trust yourself." His words brought a sense of calm that I hadn't felt in days. Maybe I was ready. Maybe this was the next step. The step that would turn the bakery into something even bigger, something that could reach more people and make a bigger impact. Over the next few weeks, we began working on the new plans. With Lucas's help, we secured the funding we needed to open a fourth location. The town was buzzing with excitement, and for the first time, I felt like we were really building something that could last. But as we prepared to open the new location, something unexpected happened. Maeve pulled me aside one evening, her face serious. "I think it's time for me to step back, Nolan," she said. Her voice was calm, but I could hear the weight behind her words. "You've got this. You don't need me here anymore. I'm proud of everything you've done, but it's time for me to move on." I was stunned. "Move on? What do you mean?" She smiled softly, her eyes twinkling. "I've been holding onto this place for a long time, Nolan. It's been my life's work, but now it's yours. It's time for you to take the reins and make it your own." I felt a lump form in my throat. Maeve had been the anchor for this place, the steady hand guiding me when I didn't know what I was doing. The thought of losing her, of her leaving, was more than I was ready for. But I knew in my heart that she was right. It was time for me to step up, to take everything I had learned and apply it to the next chapter of our journey. "I'm not sure I'm ready for this," I said, my voice quiet. "You are," she replied, her gaze unwavering. "You've been ready all along. Just trust yourself, Nolan. Trust the people around you, and the rest will follow." The next day, Maeve left the bakery for good, but her presence lingered in every corner of the place. I knew she was right. I was ready. And with that realization, I took a deep breath and stepped forward into the next chapter of this incredible journey. I stood in the middle of the bakery, looking around at the new space we had just opened. It was everything I had imagined, yet somehow, it felt like it was only just beginning. The scent of fresh bread and pastries filled the air, and the chatter of customers made the place feel alive. We had done it. We had expanded, but more than that, we had created something that wasn't just a business. It was a community. And that, I realized, was the real success. The first few days at the new bakery location were overwhelming. There were new faces, new challenges, and new opportunities. But what struck me the most was how everything felt so familiar. People came in and out just like they did at the original bakery, sharing stories, asking about the recipes, and laughing over a warm cup of coffee. It was clear to me that the heart of the place hadn't changed. The more we grew, the more I realized that it wasn't the size of the bakery that mattered. It was the connections we were making. Every day, it became more evident that the true miracle wasn't just about having a successful business. It was about building a place where people felt like they truly belonged, where they could come to heal and find peace in a world that often felt chaotic. I had no idea how long it would take to reach this point, but I knew we were on the right path. As I was wrapping up a meeting with the team about upcoming events and promotions, Clara came in with a small box in her hands. She smiled as she approached, a twinkle in her eye. "I think this belongs to you," she said, handing me the box. I raised an eyebrow and took the box from her, feeling a strange sense of anticipation. Inside, I found an old, weathered key, the kind you would see in old movies or books. There was no note, no explanation, just the key. I turned it over in my hand, feeling the weight of it. "What is this?" I asked, looking at Clara. She smiled softly. "I thought you might recognize it. It's the key to the first bakery you saved. The one that started it all." My heart skipped a beat. "But why now?" Clara shrugged. "Because it's time to remember where you came from. You've built something incredible here, Nolan. But don't forget the foundation. The heart of everything you've done is still there, and this key is a reminder of that. I stood there for a moment, the weight of her words sinking in. She was right. The original bakery, the place where everything began, was still at the core of what we had built. That small, humble shop was the birthplace of everything that had followed, and I had almost forgotten the importance of that. As the day wore on, I found myself reflecting on the journey. It wasn't just about the success, the money, or the growth. It was about the people we had touched along the way, the lives we had impacted. It was about remembering that even when we expanded, we had to stay grounded in the values that had made us who we were in the first place. The next morning, I decided to visit the original bakery. I hadn't been back in months, and I felt that now, more than ever, I needed to reconnect with it. As I walked through the familiar streets of the town, the memories came rushing back. The first time I walked into that diner, the uncertainty I felt, the fear of not knowing what would come next. And now, here I was, standing outside, looking at the same building, but it felt different. It felt like a part of me. The door creaked as I stepped inside. The space was small, just like I remembered, but it still held the same warmth. Ash trotted in beside me, his nose twitching as he took in the familiar scents. I walked behind the counter, my fingers brushing the worn wood of the old bar. This was where it had all started, the place that had given me a purpose again, the place that had helped me find my way. I didn't know what the future held, but standing there, I knew one thing for sure. I was ready for whatever came next. After a few moments of silence, I left the original bakery behind, locking the door one last time. But I wasn't leaving it behind in my heart. No, it was a part of me, a part of the foundation that had allowed me to build something bigger. The journey wasn't over. It had only just begun. We had created a community, a family. And no matter how far we went or how big we grew, that would always be the heart of what we were doing. I was ready to continue, to take on the new challenges that lay ahead, with the knowledge that as long as we stayed true to what had started this journey in the first place, we would be fine. I looked down at Ash, who was wagging his tail happily beside me, and smiled. We had come a long way from those early days. And now, we were just getting started. I walked down the street, the morning sun casting a warm glow on everything in its path. There was a buzz in the air, a sense of anticipation that had become familiar over the last few months. The town was thriving, the bakery was flourishing, and people had started to believe again. As I passed by the familiar sights, the small shops, the old oak tree in the town square, the local diner, it hit me that this wasn't just a success for the bakery. It was a success for the entire town. It was proof that when a community comes together, when people support each other, real change can happen. But even with all the growth, there was still something inside me that couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story, something that hadn't been fully realized yet. As the weeks went on, I found myself spending more and more time at the bakery, working with the team to prepare for the upcoming events and planning the expansion to other towns. But as I focused on the future, I couldn't help but wonder about the past. The past was where it all started, where I had found my purpose again. And there was something about it, something unfinished, that still needed to be explored. One afternoon, I decided to go back to the original bakery, the one where it all began. The door creaked as I entered, the familiar scent of baked goods and old wood filling the air. It had been a while since I had been here, and as I stood in the space, it felt like walking back in time. The counter, the old oven, the chairs by the window, they were all still there, still holding the same memories. But this time, it felt different. It wasn't just a place where I had started over. It was a place where I had learned to trust again, where I had found not just a business, but a community, a family. I stood by the counter, my fingers brushing against the worn wood, remembering how I used to sit here, unsure of what came next. And now, here I was, standing tall, knowing exactly what the future held. I wasn't alone anymore. And that was everything. As I turned to leave, I saw a familiar face in the doorway. It was Lucas. He had been a big part of our journey, helping us expand, bringing in investors, and supporting us every step of the way. But today, there was something different in his eyes. "Nolan," he said, his voice steady but with an edge of urgency. "I need to talk to you." I nodded and motioned for him to come in. "What's going on?" He walked in, closing the door behind him. "There's been an offer," he began, looking at me with a mixture of excitement and caution. "A big one." There's an investor group interested in buying out the bakery chain. They want to expand it even further, bigger than we ever imagined. We're talking nationwide, maybe even international. The words hung in the air between us. I felt my pulse quicken as I processed what he was saying. A part of me was excited by the idea, the potential for the bakery to grow and reach more people. But another part of me, the part that had worked so hard to build this from the ground up, hesitated. I don't know, I said, shaking my head. It's everything I've ever wanted, but it's not what we've built. What if we lose the heart of it? What if we become just another business? Lucas looked at me, his eyes understanding. I get it, Nolan. But this is a huge opportunity. We can still keep the essence of what you've built. We can still make it about the people, about the community. But we need the resources to take it further. We can't do it alone. I stood there, torn between the dream of expansion and the fear of losing what mattered most. I had spent so much time building something real, something that meant something to the town and to the people who had supported us. I didn't want to lose that. But at the same time, I knew that if we didn't seize this moment, we might never get another chance like it. After a long pause, I finally spoke. I need to think about it. This isn't just about the business. It's about what we stand for. I can't rush into this. Lucas nodded. Take all the time you need. But just know, Nolan, that we've built something incredible here. Whatever decision you make, we'll be behind you. I spent the next few days reflecting on everything that had happened. I walked the streets of the town, talking to people, listening to their stories, and taking in everything I had learned along the way. And in the end, I knew what I had to do. The bakery wasn't just about bread and pastries. It was about creating something that would last, something that would bring people together for generations to come. It wasn't about expansion for the sake of growth. It was about expanding with purpose, with heart, and with the same love for the community that had brought us this far. I sat down with Lucas and the team and told them my decision. We're going to do this, I said, my voice steady. But we're going to do it on our terms. We'll keep the heart of what we've built. And we'll take it further, not just for the business, but for the people. The look on Lucas's face was one of relief and excitement. You've got it, Nolan, he said. This is going to be bigger than we ever imagined. And in that moment, I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together, as a team, as a community, and as a family. I woke up early the next morning, feeling the weight of the decision I had made the night before. Expanding the bakery wasn't just a business move. It was a commitment to the community, a promise to keep the heart of what we had built alive while taking it to new places. I stood by the window, watching the sun rise over the town, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace. The future was uncertain, but it was ours to shape. As the weeks passed, the preparations for expansion began to take shape. We worked tirelessly, with new staff, new equipment, and new systems in place. But despite the growing pains, the essence of what we had created in the first bakery remained. It was never about the buildings or the size of the operation. It was about the people, the community, and the connections we had made. I spent every day in the bakery, overseeing the renovations and making sure that each new location was as welcoming and warm as the first. And as the first expansion location opened, I was reminded of how far we had come. The bakery, once a small diner that barely kept the lights on, was now a thriving hub for the town. People came in, not just for the food, but for the sense of belonging, for the feeling of being a part of something. They came because they knew that, no matter what, the bakery would always be there, a place to gather, a place to heal. The grand opening of the first new location was everything we had hoped for and more. The lines stretched down the street, people waiting eagerly to get inside. The smell of fresh bread, pastries, and coffee filled the air, and the sound of laughter and conversation rang out across the town. It was more than just a bakery opening. It was a celebration of everything we had worked for. I watched the crowd, feeling a wave of emotion wash over me. I had never imagined that this small dream would turn into something so big, so meaningful. As the day wore on, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought us here. There had been times when I had doubted myself, times when I had wanted to quit, times when it all seemed like too much. But now, standing in the middle of this bustling, thriving bakery, I knew that every step, every decision, had led us to this moment. The hardest parts had brought the most growth. And now, as we prepared to open more locations, I realized that we were just getting started. I took a deep breath and looked around the room. People were talking, laughing, enjoying their food, and it felt like the entire town was coming together, piece by piece. The community we had built was strong, and it was only going to get stronger. I knew there would be challenges ahead. The larger we grew, the more we would need to adapt and change. But with each new step, I felt more confident in the foundation we had created. This wasn't just about growing the business. This was about making a difference, about showing people that, no matter where they came from or what they had been through, there was always a place for them. As the night came to a close, I walked outside, the cool evening air refreshing after a long day. I stood there for a moment, taking in the sights and sounds of the town. The lights of the bakery glowed in the distance, and the streets, though quiet now, were filled with the energy of what we had built. I smiled to myself, knowing that this was only the beginning. With every new location, with every new face that walked through the door, we were spreading hope, spreading community, spreading love. And that, I realized, was the greatest gift of all. As I walked back inside, Ash trotted by my side, his tail wagging as if he knew exactly how far we had come. We weren't just a bakery anymore. We were a symbol of what was possible when people came together with purpose, with heart. We had built something that was bigger than any of us. And as I watched the last few customers leave for the night, I knew that the next chapter of this journey would be just as meaningful as the first. Together, we would keep building. Together, we would keep growing. And together, we would make sure that the bakery's heart, our heart, would remain strong no matter how far we went. I woke up early the next morning, the familiar hum of the bakery already in the air. The new location was buzzing with energy, but the excitement felt different now, deeper. It was no longer just about the business growing. It was about the community that had come together and how much we had all become a part of one another's lives. I walked through the bakery, my hand lightly brushing the counter as I passed. The same warmth filled the air, the same sense of freshly baked bread and pastries. But now, with each new location, it felt like we were spreading something far greater. As I worked alongside the team, I couldn't help but reflect on how far we had come. There had been days when I didn't think we'd make it, days when I doubted the dream. But looking around, seeing the faces of the people who had walked through these doors, faces of customers, faces of friends, and now even faces of family, it all felt worth it. Over the past few months, we had opened a few more locations, and the word had spread. The bakery wasn't just a place to eat anymore. It was a place to connect, to find refuge from the outside world, to share in something bigger than yourself. But as much as the growth excited me, I still felt the weight of responsibility. This wasn't just a business. This was a symbol of what happens when a community comes together to support something real. I stepped out of the bakery and into the cool morning air. The town was quiet, and I felt a sense of calm wash over me. But even in the quiet moments, there was a fire inside me, an urge to keep pushing, to keep building, to keep giving back. I knew I couldn't rest on our success. There was still so much to do, so many people to reach, so many more communities to touch. A few weeks later, we were preparing for another big event. It was a fundraiser for a local charity, and the bakery was going to be the heart of it all. It wasn't just about baking. It was about showing people how much they mattered, about giving back to the community that had helped us grow. The morning of the event arrived, and the bakery was packed. There was a feeling in the air, something palpable, something electric. People were coming together for a cause, and the energy was infectious. As I walked around the bakery, helping with the preparations, I looked around at the people I had come to know so well. Clara was organizing the food table, Steve was making sure the coffee was flowing, and the team was busy with everything in between. The bakery had truly become the center of the community, and it was amazing to see how far we had come. As the event got underway, I felt a quiet pride settle in my chest. We weren't just giving people a meal or a cup of coffee. We were giving them a sense of belonging, a place where they could find hope, a place where they knew they were not alone. I watched as people connected with one another, exchanging stories, offering help, and sharing laughter. It was more than I had ever hoped for. As the event came to a close, I stood in the corner of the bakery, taking it all in. The room was filled with warmth, literally and figuratively. The lights were dimming, the sound of conversations slowly fading as people began to leave, but the energy of the evening lingered. It felt like we had all just shared something important, something bigger than any of us. It wasn't just about the success of the bakery. It was about what we had built together. It was about the lives we had touched, the people who had come to rely on us, and the difference we were making. That night, as I closed up the bakery and locked the door behind me, I felt a deep sense of peace. I had made the right decision. I had taken the right steps. And I was ready for whatever came next. The journey was far from over, but I knew that we were exactly where we were meant to be. Ash walked beside me as I headed home, his tail wagging as if he knew how much had been accomplished, how much we had built. We had done it. We had created something lasting. And now, the next chapter awaited. I woke up to the sound of the bakery's soft hum in the morning, clinking of cups, the whoosh of the coffee machine, and the steady rhythm of the ovens. It was a familiar sound, one that had become part of my daily life. But this morning felt different. There was a new sense of purpose in the air, something I hadn't fully realized until now. The growth had been nothing short of miraculous, and yet, I knew we were only at the beginning. It wasn't about the number of bakeries or the success of the business. It was about the impact we were making on the community, the relationships we had nurtured, and the lives we had touched. I sat at the counter, watching as the team worked seamlessly together, just as they had every day. But today, the weight of what we had accomplished and what was still to come was on my mind. I had become the heart of this place, but now, I had to ensure that we kept the heart of what we had built. We needed to keep our mission at the core of everything we did. As the doors opened and customers began to trickle in, I felt a sense of pride, but it was more than that. It was a feeling of responsibility. The bakery wasn't just a business. It was a gathering place, a symbol of hope, and it was up to me to protect that. Later that afternoon, Lucas came by with a few of the investors. The room was filled with quiet chatter as we discussed the next steps in the bakery's expansion, but I couldn't help but notice that this time, there was something different about it. It wasn't just about getting more locations, more customers. It was about ensuring that we never lost sight of what made this place special. Lucas caught my eye and nodded, sensing the change in the air. "I know this isn't easy," he said quietly, leaning over the table. "But you're doing something incredible here, Nolan. You're creating something that has the potential to touch people all over. Don't forget that." I smiled, feeling a sense of gratitude for the support he had given me all along. I had never imagined I would be in this position, but now, I knew I couldn't back down. We had to keep pushing forward, but with care. After the meeting, I walked outside into the fresh air, feeling the cool breeze against my skin. I couldn't help but reflect on the journey so far. There had been days when I had doubted myself, unsure of the next step, but now, it was clear. We were making a difference, and that was worth everything. As I walked down the street, I saw familiar faces, people who had become regulars at the bakery, people who had supported us from the beginning. It was a reminder that we weren't just growing a business. We were growing a community. I stopped at the park near the bakery, where I often went to clear my head. The peaceful atmosphere helped me process everything that had been happening. Sitting on the park bench, I watched families playing, children laughing, and felt the quiet strength of this town. It was a place where people could come together, where they could feel like they belonged, and that was something I would never take for granted. As the sun began to set, I returned to the bakery. The day's bustle had quieted, but there was still a sense of energy in the air. The team was finishing up, preparing for the next day. I walked around, checking in with everyone, and I couldn't help but feel that, in many ways, this was my family. Each person who worked here had a piece of this dream, and together, we were building something that was bigger than any of us could do alone. The sound of the bell above the door jingled, and I looked up to see an older woman walk in. She smiled warmly as she approached the counter, her eyes twinkling. I immediately recognized her, Mrs. Reynolds, a regular customer who had become a friend. "Good evening, Nolan," she said kindly. "How's everything going?" "The bakery's thriving, I see." I smiled back, feeling a sense of pride. "Yes, it's going well, but we're always working to make it better." She nodded knowingly. "I've been coming here for years, and I can tell you, this place has something special. You've built more than a bakery. You've built a home for people." Her words stuck with me long after she left. This place was more than just a business to me. It had become a refuge for so many, a place where people could find peace, connection, and hope. I walked to the back of the bakery and sat down for a moment, reflecting on her words. This wasn't just about the success of the bakery. It was about making a difference, about creating something that would last. I knew there would be challenges ahead, but I also knew that as long as we kept the heart of what we had built, we could face anything. I looked at Ash, who was lying at my feet, his head resting on the floor, eyes watchful. In his quiet way, he had been a constant reminder to me of loyalty, of purpose, of home. He had been with me from the very beginning, and now, we were both a part of something bigger than ourselves. As the night drew on, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. We had built something special, and no matter what the future held, that would always be at the heart of everything we did. I sat on the porch of the bakery that evening, watching the town slowly settle into the quiet of the night. The lights of the bakery flickered softly in the distance, and the sounds of the day were fading away. The rush of business had calmed, and now, as I sat with Ash by my side, the weight of everything that had happened, everything we had built, began to sink in. It had been a long road to get here, but now, I could finally feel the fullness of it all, the sense of accomplishment, of purpose, of home. The bakery had grown from a small, struggling diner into a thriving business, but more than that, it had become a cornerstone of this community. It was no longer just a place for food. It was a place where people came together, where they shared not just meals but stories, laughter, and life. It was a place where hope had taken root and spread out into every corner of the town. The growth had come with its challenges, of course. The decision to expand, to take this small dream and turn it into something larger, had not been easy. There were moments when I doubted myself, moments when I questioned whether we could keep the heart of the bakery intact as we grew. But now, sitting here, looking at the town that had supported us from the very beginning, I knew that we had done it. We had stayed true to what mattered. We had created something that would last, something that would continue to touch lives for years to come. As I looked out over the streets, the sense of peace I had been searching for settled over me. The town had become more than just a place. It had become a part of me, a part of the story that I would carry with me forever. And now, as the new bakery locations were established and the business flourished, I realized that we weren't just growing for the sake of growth. We were growing to continue our mission, to expand the sense of belonging we had built here and spread it to others. I had learned that growth wasn't about becoming bigger or more successful. It was about becoming more connected, more intentional, and more purposeful. And with that, the future began to look even brighter. The bakery was thriving, but it was only the beginning. There was still so much more to do, so many more people to reach, and so many more communities to touch. As I stood up, Ash wagging his tail beside me, I felt ready for whatever came next. This wasn't just my journey anymore. It was ours. We had built something together, something lasting and meaningful. And now, I knew, it was time to continue that journey, to take the bakery, and the sense of community it represented, into the future. We had created a home here, a place that had been born from the struggles and dreams of many. It was a place of connection, of healing, and of hope. And as I walked back inside the bakery, the sound of the bell above the door jingling as I entered, I smiled. This was what it was all about. It wasn't just the success or the expansion. It was the people, the connections, the love that had been poured into this place. This was the miracle, and it had always been right in front of us. The journey wasn't over. In fact, it had only just begun. And with that, I knew that whatever the future held, we were ready for it. Together, we would continue to build, continue to grow, and continue to make this place a beacon of light for everyone who walked through our doors. Because in the end, that's what mattered most. The people, the community, the heart of it all.